Hello, today is June 14th, Friday, and bought this earlier in the week. It's a 13.77 pound beef brisket. I will not trim off the fat. This is the third one I will be processing for beef jerky. And what I've learned is there's different pieces, and the grain goes in different ways. So this one is just one part and the grain is going this way. So I'm just going to make it easier on myself, I'm going to cut this into pieces. Always sharpen your knife, or straighten it at least, before you start. And having a good knives is worth the investment. I have not spent hundreds and hundreds. I did it over time. I didn't buy a big set, but I like my Chicago cutlery. A lot. So now it's going to get a little tricky as other cuts come in, but I'll show you that when I slice it. Now, briskets are not a tender piece. This is why it's always slow cooked. And making the jerky, especially the first one that I cut way off. See, this one it looks like one piece on this side, but by the time you get here, and the grains are not lined up. There's muscle tissue, the meat is muscle. And I don't trim off the fat. I actually like the dehydrated fat, and it has to be stored in the freezer because of the fat. The fat will go rancid. If it was just mostly beef, there is a little bit of marbling, very little. It would be shelf stable, but because I like the fat, it's amazing if you hadn't tried it. Yeah, this is a little bit more work to get into. You see, this is a good bit of fat on the on these two strips. And arm strength does help. I'm not powerful in that way. And you see that the meat seems to be going that way. And the first brisket that I did, like I said, I did it wrong, and it was tough to chew. And what I ended up doing was taking there were bigger pieces than this after they were dehydrated, and I just cut them into small pieces, and then we were able to enjoy it. But for the most part, this should be tender without me having to cut it. But if it is an issue, that's easily solved by taking some good scissors and cutting the meat. I will share my recipe. Here's the end that I first cut off of the brisket, and the meat is one piece. So to cut it perpendicular against the grain, so I don't have to worry about having to cut these with the scissors later. I may still have to do that with some of the pieces that I cut from the end piece, because they will have meat going in different directions. Like you can see where there's different muscle groups. And yes, I have had meat slicers, deli slicers, and I've got other gadgets to slice meat. Normally they have to be frozen, and I don't have room in the freezer to freeze it, and then I forget about it, and they freeze too much, and then I have to let it thaw some, and I just don't want to do that. So they are a little bit thicker. Remember, it will shrink, and this is the ability of my knife skills, which are not that great, and what we like. So, you know, we're talking about almost 14 pounds. And for the price, though, I can't find a cheaper cut of meat. It's not that I prefer brisket. We were using eye of round steak, and it was all meat with just a little strip of fat, or, you know, sometimes we get a little bit more fat than this on the eye of round, but for under $4 for beef, and I know this is, you know, what it is. You know, sometimes some of the meat we get now, you have to really know what you're looking at, and they're faking a lot of stuff or using offcuts with some meat glues, and I just don't know what's going on. I prefer to buy local when I can, and that's normally by getting our freezer empty as much as possible, and then going out and buying like a quarter of a cow or half a cow. We've not been able to do that in over a year. We found some local farms that we can go to. I like the Costco cuts meats, and this is the best price I can get. If I went to a local farmer, and it's worth it, there is a taste difference in the meat. I'd probably be paying at least double. I doubt I'd be getting meat for less than $7 a pound. And like I said, it's worth it. But right now, this is what's in our budget and what I can easily get. And I will need to sharpen the knife. You know, when I feel it, the knife should be doing the work until I get to the fat. The fat's a little bit more difficult, not as easy to cut as the meat. So this is my recipe, and I hope you heard the quotes on the recipe, the word recipe. I like to use 1 part, so I'm going to do 1 cup of soy sauce. Use your favorite brand. Let's see, a little bit more. I like Kikkoman, but I am making my own because, let's see. Oh, they do use wheat. I had to avoid this for a long time, but it does not have any preservatives because the salt is the preservative in this, and they're still using their old recipe. But I am in the process of making my own soy sauce. But here, for this jerky, it just ended up so salty. So I used 2 parts water. So if you're using 1 cup of soy sauce, you need to put 2 cups of water. I used to add gochugaru, but sometimes I have kids eating this and they don't like the heat. I also would put sesame, I buy raw sesame seeds and I toast it myself. But this is what makes the mess. When you get beef, a strip of beef jerky, this is what's going to fall down in your car, wherever you go. Now, you can do your own crushed fresh garlic and minced onions. I just use the powder. I don't really want to see it on my jerky strips. I like it more garlicky than oniony. So how many was that? Here's the thing. This is why I say recipe with a quote. because, let's see, granulated onion. I like the granulated. The humidity here is really bad. So if you get the powdered onions and the powdered garlic, there's a difference between granulated and powder. I'm not sure how they do it differently, but the powdered stuff will become a rock. You have to put it in a different container that you can easily access. And I do like, now this is more for flavoring. I know the oil and this is what, the fats are what often goes rancid. And if you wanted some sweetness to this, you can use a juice. Apple juice is a favorite of ours. And instead of using the water, use apple juice to dilute the soy sauce. And I just want the hint of sesame seeds. So, and about sesame seed, it's better to get it in a can versus a bottle or plastic that light can go through. You have to store this in a cool, dry place. That's what it tells you to do. But what happens to it before it gets to your kitchen? So cans are better. I'm not, anyway, and it's not cheap. And I prefer to buy it from the Asian markets because they have a faster turnover. So this, I will have to do this twice. Now here's the trick with the recipe, in quotes. Sample it. Oh, that's good. Does it need more of this? Oh, I did forget something. Black pepper. It doesn't take much, and if you use white pepper, you have to be careful. But that's it. I have to get another spoon to stir, but, and I probably have to do this twice. No, maybe not. Take that back. It's still, the flavor was still very salty. You can tell, taste the soy sauce. And I need to glove. I didn't have to use gloves while I was cutting the meat. But when I'm doing this, the things, like if I was doing hamburger, the thought of meat getting underneath my fingernails or having to clean them afterwards with, you know, after I wash my hands and there's meat under my fingernails, it just grosses me out. I can handle raw meat, but this will, there are some burger ground, you know, small pieces that were cut into this. Now, it needs to marinate, and of course the soy sauce mixture goes to the bottom, so that stuff will get marinated better. But it doesn't have to be, I mean, it depends on how strong. My beef jerky used to be so salty because I didn't dilute the soy sauce enough. But you have to figure out what you like. If you want it spicier, then add cayenne, add gochugaru, whatever you have on hand, add it and try. Maple syrup. When I used to use sugar, because my mom did too. That's what I grew up with. It's basically bulgogi sauce marinade. I like to use brown sugar. And then as we started phasing sugar out as much as possible, we're not strict keto, but we're basically keto carnivore. So this is a good snack to have, and it's expensive to buy jerky. I mean, per pound, you're paying over $10 easily, and it's not always the best quality. So making it ourselves this way, yeah, you're looking at over $50 worth of meat. I didn't cut any of the fat off. It all gets eaten. Nothing gets wasted. I'm gonna let this sit for a little bit and come back and stir it up some more. I'm debating, do I need more soy sauce? And what often happens is I make too much soy sauce, and I will freeze it for the next batch. But this looks like it's just right. It's always an experiment. It's always something new. And I'm not seeing any juice. But let that sit at least half an hour. Longer is fine. Overnight is fine. And now to set up the dehydrator. I have multiple dehydrators, but because of the liquid content, you'll see what I do with this. I added another a second of the marinade. I made another second batch and added it. You can see how much more liquid there is, and you can also see the color change in the meat. It's, you know, taking that darker soy sauce color. The fat too. Now I cut the meat, most of it against the grain of the muscle, and like here it's not. You can see that the muscles are going this way. I didn't have a lot of choice. I mean, it's not perfectly, but this is going to be a tough piece, and I will know when I get it out of the dehydrator to cut that one up, or put that. I will bag up all the tough pieces in one bag and then cut them up into smaller pieces to make it easier to chew. And sometimes I like to do that even with the tender pieces, just so that you're not sitting there and trying to gnaw a piece of meat off of a bigger piece to chew on it. And when especially if it's for a road trip, or, you know, I like to grab a bag when we're going shopping so we have something to munch on that we know what it is, you know. We're not buying anything questionable. And sometimes we do because, you know, we treat ourselves. It's okay to have those unhealthy things every so often. And this is our treat. This is what we do. So far, we're going through 2 briskets a month. And when we have our son or grandsons visit, they know, you know, it's like, what, it's in the freezer. Grab, you know, if you want to munch on something. We have some other snacks. We try to keep things healthy. And sometimes that just means I buy it and make it from scratch. It doesn't mean that it's very healthy. But we know what's in there. I was recently using my older dehydrator, which has the motor on the bottom, but because of how liquidy this one is, it will drip through the tray, and often ends up, I mean, I had a big mess just from using this without the jelly tray, and it poured through and went through the holes, and that was all stopped up. So I just sacrifice the bottom tray this way, and it will, if you have a bottom and you have something liquidy like this, it will it could mess up your motor because it will get in there. So I like to do this nice big piece. Now some of these pieces are thicker, considerably thicker than other pieces. That's not a problem. Some of these meats don't look as dark as other meats, so I'm having to grab it from underneath. And what I do is, and I'll show you, just like this is a thicker piece. So this piece will need longer processing than this piece. When this piece is done, I'll remove it and bag it. And this will stay in the dehydrator along with other thicker cuts until they're all done. My son likes it to where they're still, when they're dehydrated, they can still be flexible. I like it when they snap. You try to bend it and it snaps. And like this piece is going to be a tougher piece because I wasn't able to cut it across the grain. Not a problem. I'll just take the scissors and cut those into small strips so that we can easily put it in our mouths and eat it. I don't think you want to watch me fill up all these trays. Following morning, we have this. It's still very bendy. I can tell that it's not completed. Yeah, the thinner ones are a little bit better. This is the top tray. And here's the bottom tray. The fat, when it's white like that, it's still raw in there. And like this one is pretty much done. And to show all the dripping, and I can remove this. Small kitchen. And this will dry faster. This is actually the second batch. And I only got 6 trays instead of the 8 that I got from the first batch. So it was a little less than half. And slide this over. And what I do, and from munching on the first batch and some of this one, I'm just going to go ahead and pre-cut everything. Just to make it easier later. I already got 7 pint baggies stored away in the freezer because there's a lot of fat, and that will go rancid. Lean meats you can dehydrate fully and they'll be shelf stable for a very, very long time. This one is still very thick. I'll put that back up there. And it doesn't take long, and it's so much easier, especially when you have a tough cut of meat, to just pop that in your mouth. You're not having to bite. I literally have scratched my face from, putting that and then yanking it, and these are some sharp edges, and cutting my face around my mouth. So I noticed one on the right side of my mouth, and it's like, how did I do that? This is how. So it doesn't take long. So normally with the uncut pieces, it doesn't fill up as much. This is much a heavier bag, so I'm not going to fill them up fully. So that I should be able to get 3 bags out of this, and then another one when this is done. This is meat's thicker, fat's thicker. And another thing I wanted to show, in my dishwasher, I can put this in the bottom tray upside down, so most of the cruddy stuff is on this side. Put it upside down. The thing is, just not use the heat setting on the dry. So this will also, normally I would put this in my sink. I have a large enough sink that these can sit and soak, and then I scrub and scrub. This works. I still have to check it out because once in a while there'll be like pieces on the back side that didn't get it sprayed as well, or stuck on pieces in between that didn't get washed out. So I have to do a visual check like you do anyway, right? You're doing that. So that's it. Happy Father's Day. This is, we've been enjoying this, just getting pieces, and it's a lot easier to eat tough cuts. So don't If you didn't cut it right, like, you know, here you can tell that the meat grain is going that way. That's going to be a really hard one to bite off and chew. So once it's cut, that problem is resolved. And I did my best to cross cut against the grain, but with the odd cut like the brisket, you're going to have issues. So hope this helped. Be a blessing and be blessed.